let's look at the dates of stuff. Okay, so today is the last bit of new material that we're going to do. I think I've actually assigned all the friction problems. We're not going to do any more. I think my plan is to give another weekly assignment, but give you time to work on it in class. We have a quiz today. I'm going to do another quiz on Monday. That seems sort of condensed together, but it's not, so don't worry. And then exam 3 is a week from Friday. And then our final is, I don't remember, but we have a scheduled final period. I'll put that on D2L, but during finals week. So that's about everything we have left, I think. So we have exam 3, Friday, 12/9, and then exam 4, who knows? Oh, we do have an exam 4. And if you haven't turned stuff in, I'll still take it, but please don't wait until finals week to turn it in if you can avoid it, you know, because I have to get it graded by the grade deadline, you know. So the sooner you can get it in, the better for me if you have old stuff. Anybody have any questions about how the end of the semester is going to shape up? Okay. Well, so here's the last thing. We have a quiz at the end of class today, last 10 minutes or something. So I want to do an example today with bearing friction. I want to combine the two types. So let's say we have a object like this. We have sort of a axle thing with a circular flange. And this is going to be articulated with something like that. Okay, so, you know, this goes here. And then what we want to calculate is the couple that's required to keep this rotating at a constant speed. So just to make sense out of what's going on, this axle will have journal bearing friction with that circle, right? And this flange will have thrust bearing friction with the surrounding area. Can you picture all that going on? So we need some some dimensions. So let's say that the radius of this one is 1 centimeter, 0.01 meters. And let's say that the radius of this one is let's say 4 centimeters. And the forces are going to be, so there's going to be a downward force here and here. Each of these is, let's say, 1,000 newtons. And then there's going to be a force, an axial force, causing that thrust-bearing friction. Let's say that's 2,000 newtons. And the last thing we need is a coefficient of friction. So the coefficient of kinetic friction is 0.1. That's pretty high, actually, for something that's meant to rotate. Let's make that smaller. Let's make that 0.05. And so we want to know what's the couple required to maintain a constant angular velocity. This thing's already moving, so the kinetic friction is what we want. And what we're going to do is just, our total couple is going to be the couple required for the journal-bearing friction plus the couple required for the thrust-bearing friction. And so we'll just do it as two parts and then just add them together. Okay? So first, let's do the journal-bearing. So this is a free body diagram of the axle. So this has a radius of 1 centimeter. There's a force pushing down of, so what's the force pushing down? Careful with that. So I separated it out to show that the symmetry of it, but remember we're looking at it from a side, so you have to include all those forces. Okay, so it's 2,000. So just be careful with that. And then that angle is exaggerated, but we have an upward force of 2,000 that's made up of a friction component and a normal component. So this is 0.05 N. That's theta and that's theta. So we can use that triangle that I've drawn outside of the free body to figure out what that angle is. And the reason we want to know that angle is we're trying to find this moment arm rho. Okay, so this theta is the inverse tangent of 0.05 N over N, which is just the inverse tangent of 0.05. Can someone calculate that and give it to me with like 1,000,000 decimal places? So keeping 1,000,000 decimal places, by the way, is like the poor man's version of keeping your variables all the way through until the end. Did you know that? It's also how computer programs work. So if you've done a lot of computer programming, this doesn't bother you. If you have never done a lot of computer programming, then this bothers you horribly. Yes?
2.862.
Okay, 2.862.
Yes.
And then what?
4.
Okay.
0.
Okay, I'll just go there. That's pretty good. 2.8624 degrees. Okay, and now that row vector, well, it's not a vector, that row distance is, the radius of this is 0.01. So rho is equal to 0.01 times the sine of 2.8624. Can you calculate that for me? It's going to be very close to whatever that is in radians, by the way.
Getting 4.9938 times 10 to the 4.
Okay, say it again. 4.99.
37525.
Okay, I'll just keep that many times 10 to the minus fourth. And that's meters. Cole doesn't even know what we're doing because he's neat. And then the couple is rho times that 2,000 Newton force. And so that is 9.9876 times 10 to the minus 1, right? Okay, so 0.99876. That's not meters anymore, that's Newton meters. That's why you didn't come to class that day, because I would have done that. It's true, I guess I would have. Well, I really need to take a good long look at myself, I guess.
As soon as he walked in, it's going.
Okay, so that's the couple required to keep it rolling if there was only the journal bearing friction. That's the radius of the axle. Yep. And now we're going to the thrust bearing. Okay, so we want to consider the total area that the thrust bearing is acting over. So this distance is 0.01. This distance is what did I say, 04? I'm going to just move that out of the way a little, but this distance is 0.04 meters. And remember the thing, we're going to go in order and figure out, so first I'll define my infinitesimal ring. The thickness of that ring is d little r. From the center to that ring, what's that distance? Well, that's like what our little r is, that dr is related to. Okay, and the steps that we're going to follow are, we're going to first figure out, for that infinitesimal ring, we're going to figure out our infinitesimal normal force. So what's the total force that's applied over that infinitesimal area? Then we're going to figure out the infinitesimal friction force, which is just going to be our coefficient times that normal we just figured out. Then we're going to figure out our infinitesimal moment, which is going to be that friction force times the radius. So that's r, let's see, mu r dn. Well, sorry, I keep changing my mind. Mu times df, you know. And then the last thing we have to do is just integrate to get the total couple. And we're going to do this just over the distances where we're going to have thrust bearing friction, which is from r equals 0.01 to r equals 0.04. Anybody have any questions about that strategy? Okay, so the first thing we have to do is figure out that infinitesimal normal force. So we know that, question? Yes. Is that your question? Okay, thank you. So the first thing we have to do is figure out the total normal force that's going to act on that infinitesimal ring. And you can think of it this way, dn over n, you know, that total normal force, is the same ratio as dA over the total area. Okay, so dn is just going to be equal to n times dA over A. A is pi times 0.04 squared minus 0.01 squared. So that's the total area that's in contact with the wall. Can someone calculate that? -3, okay. That's meters squared. And now we have to calculate dA. We're going to take that infinitesimal strip, imagine cutting it, stretching it out, and so that's going to be dr times the circumference of that. So that's 2 pi r dr. And the normal force, so what's the normal force here for that thrust-bearing friction? Oh, I should have made those the same. Stupid idiot. is 2,000. I'm not changing any more stuff. But this is the one, right? It's the force that's pushing that flange against the wall. Okay. So if this 2,000 here said 7,000, that normal force would be 7,000. Okay, so dN is equal to 2,000 times 2 pi r dr divided by the total area, which is 4.792 times 10 to the minus third. So this is, well, can someone just multiply out all those numbers? So we got 4,000 times pi divided by this thing, and then whatever that number is, we'll multiply by RDR.
And this is 2.66.
2.66 times 10 to the 6. Is that repeating sixes? Okay, I'll just keep it repeating. Times 10 to the 6, and then R dr. Okay. All right, so that's dN. So now we need to go from that normal force to the friction force. So second, d force of friction is equal to the coefficient times that increment of normal force. So what's, 0.05 times 2.6 repeating times 10 to the 6 RDR. Can someone tell me what that is? 1.3 repeating times 10 to the 5. Okay. And we're still in SI units, so no, we still have these things. RDR. Now we have that friction force. Now we have to figure out the moment that one infinitesimal friction force applies. So the increment of the moment, the couple, is R times this. So R times d force of friction. So that's 1.3 repeating times 10 to the 5th times R squared dr. And then the last thing we have to do is just integrate. So the total couple is the integral for R from 0.01 to 0.04 of 1.3 repeating times 10 to the 5th times R squared dr. So that is, what's 1.3 repeating divided by 3? All fours, 44,000?
Yeah, 44,000.
And then fours forever?
Yeah.
Okay. Times R cubed dr, dr is gone, times R cubed. And then we're evaluating that from 0.01 to 0.04. And so can someone evaluate that for me?
4, how many of 10 minutes? Two point eight.
2.8, like 0 basically?
Yeah.
Okay. And that is Newton meters. So now we have the two parts. And so the total couple is 0.999 plus 2.8. And we'll just call that 3.8 Newton meters. Cool, right? So in order to keep this thing rotating with a constant angular velocity, that's the couple that would have to be applied by the moment or whatever external force. Otherwise, it's going to slow down and stop. Okay, I don't have anything else to say to you. Let's do the quiz.